I fed them, clothed them, drove them to every school play and every doctor's appointment. I stayed up nights when they had fevers. I taught my grandson how to throw a baseball and my granddaughter how to ride a bike without training wheels. For 8 years, I was their father, their grandfather, their everything, because their mother decided she had better things to do. Then she came back, with a suit and a briefcase and a court order, and suddenly I was the criminal. My name is not important. What matters is that I am 63 years old, retired from 30 years of working pipeline construction in Oklahoma, and the proudest grandfather you will ever meet. I have 2 grandchildren, a boy, Aiden, who just turned 14, and a girl, Lily, who is 11 now. They call me Pop. They have called me Pop since they could talk. Not because I told them to, just because it felt right. Their mother is my daughter. I still have trouble saying that sometimes. She showed up on a Sunday evening in November 8 years ago. It was already dark. I remember because Aiden had just fallen asleep on the couch watching football and Lily was in her pajamas playing with blocks on the kitchen floor. She was only 3 then. My daughter knocked instead of ringing the bell, which struck me as strange. She always rang the bell twice, fast, the way she had since she was a teenager. When I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. She had that look, the one I had learned to recognize after years of watching her spiral. Hollow eyes, jumpy hands, a smile that didn't match anything happening on her face. She asked if she could come in. I stepped back and let her. She sat at the kitchen table for maybe 10 minutes. She didn't ask about the kids. Didn't look at Lily playing on the floor. She talked fast about a fresh start and a new opportunity somewhere out west. She mentioned a man. She always mentioned a man. Then she slid a folded piece of paper across the table to me. I picked it up. It was a handwritten note, barely a paragraph, saying that she was leaving the children in my care temporarily and that I had her permission to make medical and educational decisions on their behalf. She had signed it at the bottom. Temporarily, she said, just until I get settled. 2 months, tops. I looked at that piece of paper. Then I looked at her. I had seen this movie before. When she was 24, she disappeared for 6 weeks and called me from a jail in New Mexico. When she was 27, she left Aiden with me for what she said would be a weekend, and it turned into 3 months. But this time felt different. This time she had Lily with her too. And Lily was 3 years old and didn't understand anything except that her mother was standing in the kitchen and not holding her. I folded the paper and put it in my shirt pocket. Okay, I said, 2 months. She stood up, kissed Aiden on the forehead. He didn't wake up, and crouched down next to Lily for a moment. Lily reached up and grabbed her hair the way little kids do. My daughter gently pulled away, stood up, and walked to the door. I followed her. She turned around on the porch and looked at me for a long moment. I don't know what she was expecting me to say. I didn't say anything. I'll call when I land, she said. She drove away in a car I didn't recognize. I stood on the porch in the cold until I couldn't see the headlights anymore. She did not call when she landed. She did not call the next week. I waited 2 months, then 3, then 6. I left voicemails that went unanswered. I sent text messages that were never read. I contacted her one friend whose number I still had, a woman named Jolene who I'd met once at a holiday party. And Jolene told me my daughter had gone to Nevada with someone, and that was the last she'd heard. I hired a private investigator for 3 months. He found nothing useful, so I did what needed to be done. I enrolled Aiden in the 3rd grade at the elementary school 6 blocks from my house. I took Lily to her pediatrician and got her caught up on vaccinations. I converted my spare bedroom into a proper room for her, painted it yellow because she pointed at a yellow crayon once and said, "Pretty." I filed for emergency guardianship through the county family court, submitted my daughter's handwritten note as evidence, and after a home visit from a social worker and a hearing where I sat alone at a table in a courtroom and explained the situation to a judge, I was granted temporary legal guardianship of both children. That was 8 years ago. In those 8 years, I went to every parent-teacher conference. I coached Aiden's Little League team for 2 seasons. I learned to braid Lily's hair, badly at first, then better. I took them to church on Sundays when they wanted to go and let them sleep in when they didn't. We drove to Tulsa every summer to see my sister, their great aunt, who made chicken and dumplings from scratch and let them stay up too late. We were a family. Small, quiet, a little unconventional, but a family. The one person who helped me through all of it, and I mean the one person who never once made me feel like I was doing something strange by raising my grandchildren alone at 55 years old, was my neighbor, a man named Bo. Bo was 68, a widower, a retired high school shop teacher. He lived across the street and 3 houses down. He had no children of his own and an enormous vegetable garden that he was irrationally proud of. He started coming over on Saturday mornings to watch football, and somewhere along the way it just became permanent. He helped me build a treehouse in the backyard when Aiden was 8. He taught Lily how to identify birds. He was the closest thing those kids had to another adult who loved them. I want you to remember Bo's name, because when everything fell apart, he was the only reason I survived it. She called on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was making lunch. Aiden was at school. Lily was at school. It was just me and a grilled cheese sandwich and some afternoon news I wasn't really watching. The number was unknown. I almost didn't pick up. Dad. I set down my spatula. Her voice was different, fuller somehow, steadier. She said she had been in treatment, a long-term residential program in Arizona, for 14 months. She said she was sober. She said she had a job, a small apartment, a therapist she saw twice a week. She said she was ready to be a mother. I stood in my kitchen and listened to all of this. Then I asked her where she had been for 8 years. And there was a long silence. I wasn't well, she said. Your children didn't know that, I said. They just knew you were gone. She asked if she could talk to them. I told her I needed to think about it and that I would call her back. She gave me a number. I wrote it down. I did not call her back that week. I talked to Aiden first because he was 14 and old enough to have a say. I sat him down at the kitchen table, the same table where his mother had slid that piece of paper across to me 8 years ago, and I told him his mother had called. I told him she said she was sober and wanted to reconnect. He looked at me for a long time without saying anything. Do I have to? He said. No, I said. Not unless you want to. He looked back down at the table. Does she know I play baseball? I didn't know how to answer that. I don't think so, I said. He nodded slowly, the way teenagers do when they're processing something bigger than they want to show. Maybe, he said. Maybe I'll talk to her. But not yet. I told him that was okay. I told him there was no rush. I thought that was the end of it. A slow, careful process of rebuilding. A gradual reconnection done on the kids' terms, with a therapist involved and clear boundaries in place. That is what I was prepared for. What I was not prepared for was the sheriff's deputy who knocked on my door 6 weeks later. There were 2 of them. They stood on my porch with that practiced look of neutrality that law enforcement learns, the look that gives away nothing. One of them asked if I was who I was. I said yes. He said they had a court order for the immediate return of 2 minors to their legal parent. I told him he had the wrong house. He showed me the paperwork. My daughter had filed a petition in family court claiming that I had taken her children without her consent and had been refusing to return them. She had hired an attorney, a sharp-looking woman I would later learn charged $400 an hour, and together they had constructed a version of events in which I was the villain. In their telling, my daughter had asked me to watch the children for a weekend 8 years ago, and I had simply never given them back. In their telling, she had been trying to reach them for years, and I had blocked all contact. The deputy was apologetic but firm. He said the court order superseded any prior guardianship arrangement and that the children needed to come with him. I asked if I could make a phone call. He said I had 5 minutes. I called Bo. I told him what was happening in a voice I barely recognized as my own. I told him where the guardianship paperwork was, in a red folder in the second drawer of my filing cabinet, and I told him that somewhere in that same cabinet was the handwritten note my daughter had left 8 years ago. I asked him if he could get into my house and find those documents. He said he would handle it. They let me say goodbye to Lily in her room. She was still in her after-school clothes. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she understood something was wrong because I was working very hard to seem calm and I am not a good actor. She grabbed my sleeve when I tried to stand up. "Are you coming?" she said. "I'll be there soon," I said. "I promise." Aiden was in the driveway when they walked me out. He had gotten home from baseball practice 10 minutes before. He had his cleats in his hand, and he was standing very still, watching. He looked at the deputies, and then he looked at me, and he said, with a steadiness I didn't know a 14-year-old could have, "Pop, what do you need me to do?" I told him to go with his sister. I told him to keep her calm. I told him to trust me. He nodded once. He put his arm around Lily's shoulders and walked with her to the deputy's vehicle without looking back. I stood in my driveway and watched them drive away, and that was the worst moment of my life. Worse than anything that had come before it. Worse than the night my wife passed 8 years earlier. Worse than the first time my daughter called me from a jail cell. Worse than every sleepless night I had spent wondering where she was and whether she was alive. I had promised Lily I would be there soon. I did not know if I could keep that promise. I was not arrested that night. But I was taken to the county sheriff's station and kept in a waiting room for 4 hours while someone somewhere sorted out what exactly the legal situation was. I called my own attorney, a man I'd used for my wife's estate, and he told me not to say anything and that he would be there in the morning. Bo was at my house. He had gotten in through the back door. I had given him a key years ago for emergencies, and he found the red folder exactly where I told him it was. But the handwritten note was not in the filing cabinet. I had moved it. I need to back up. When my daughter first called in March, something made me uneasy. Not about her sobriety. I had no reason to doubt that. But about her intentions. About the man she had mentioned being with in Nevada. About the attorney she had apparently consulted before she called me, which I did not know at the time but learned later. 2 weeks after her first call, I had taken the handwritten note from the filing cabinet and driven to my attorney's office. I had it notarized as a copy, with the date and a certification of authenticity. Then I placed the original in a fireproof lockbox at my bank and gave my attorney the notarized copy. I don't know what made me do it. 63 years of living, maybe. Knowing my daughter, Bo did not find the original. But he found something else. 3 years earlier, when my daughter had been unreachable for so long that I genuinely feared she might be dead, I had written her a letter, a long one. I had described the children's lives in detail, their schools, their teachers, their friends, their personalities, their favorite foods. I had told her what she was missing. I had told her that her children loved her despite everything and that there was still time. I had mailed it to the last address I had for her. It had come back marked "Return to Sender." I had kept it. It was in the red folder with the guardianship paperwork, unopened, still in the original envelope with the "Return to Sender" stamp. Bo scanned it and emailed it to my attorney that night. The next morning, my attorney walked into that family courtroom with 3 things: the notarized handwritten note from 8 years ago, the guardianship order signed by a judge, and an unopened letter addressed to my daughter at her last known address, stamped "Return to Sender," dated 3 years prior, proof that I had been trying to reach her, not hiding from her. He also brought Aiden. My attorney had called the guardian ad litem, the attorney appointed by the court to represent the children's interests, and Aiden had asked to speak to her the night before. He had told her things. I don't know everything he said because it was confidential, but I know it was the truth. I know it because Aiden is, at 14, more honest than most adults I have ever met. The hearing lasted 2 hours. My daughter's attorney argued passionately. She was good. I'll give her that. She painted a picture of a recovering mother trying to reclaim her children from a controlling parent who had kept them from her. She was persuasive. For about 40 minutes, I was genuinely afraid. Then my attorney presented the note. My daughter's attorney said it was unverifiable. Then my attorney presented the guardianship order. My daughter's attorney said it had been obtained under false pretenses. Then my attorney presented the letter. The return to sender letter. 3 years old. My handwriting on the outside. My daughter's old Nevada address. The postal stamp. The rejection stamp. There was a long silence in that courtroom. The judge asked my daughter's attorney if her client wished to explain why, if she had been desperately trying to reach her children for 8 years, a letter from their grandfather had been returned undelivered to an address she had apparently not maintained. My daughter's attorney asked for a brief recess. They did not come back from that recess with the same posture. The final ruling came 3 days later, after the guardian ad litem submitted her report. The judge reinstated my guardianship. He ordered a formal family reunification assessment, a structured process overseen by a licensed family therapist for my daughter to begin rebuilding a relationship with her children on their terms and at their pace. He noted in his ruling that there was no credible evidence of wrongdoing on my part and that the petition had been filed without sufficient basis. My daughter did not get what she came for. But something shifted for me in those 3 days, and I have to be honest about it. I had been so focused on fighting, on the paperwork, the attorneys, the hearing, that I had not let myself feel anything. And then it was over. And I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of the courthouse, and I put my hands on the steering wheel, and I sat there for a long time. She was my daughter. Whatever she had done, whatever had gone wrong between us, she was my daughter. And she was sick for a long time. And she was trying, maybe, in the only way she knew how. She had gone about it the wrong way. The attorney, the court order, the accusations. But underneath all of that was a woman who had lost 8 years with her children and was terrified she had lost them forever. I don't say that to excuse what she did. What she did caused real harm. What she did to those kids, leaving them, then trying to rip them away again. I will not minimize that. But I am 63 years old and I have made my own mistakes. I know what it looks like to be desperate. Bo was waiting in my driveway when I got home. He had a thermos of coffee and 2 long chairs set up in the garage because it was still cold out. He did not ask me what the ruling was. He looked at my face and he said, "Good." Then he poured me a cup and we sat there for a while without talking. That is worth more than most people understand. I gave Bo a proper thank you later, not just words, though I said those too. I want to be clear about this because I have heard too many stories where the person who risks something to help never gets acknowledged. Bo had driven to my attorney's office himself with those documents. He had sat with Aiden and Lily that first night when I couldn't be there. He had kept my granddaughter from panicking by playing a card game with her until 10 o'clock at night. He deserved more than thanks, so I insisted on paying the legal costs he had quietly offered to cover, which he had refused to let me know about until it was over. He had put $4,000 on a credit card to retain my attorney when my own funds were tied up. $4,000. Without telling me. I paid him back with interest. He fought me on the interest. I won. The family reunification process began in May. A therapist named Dr. Caldwell, patient, careful, unhurried, facilitated the first meeting between my daughter and the children in a neutral office setting. Lily was cautious. Aiden was measured in the way only he can be. My daughter cried. The kids didn't, at least not in front of her. It has been slow. It is still slow. Some weeks go better than others. But Aiden told me something last month that I have been carrying with me since. We were driving home from his baseball game. He had hit a double in the 4th inning and he was in a good mood. And out of nowhere he said, "Pop, I think maybe I'll give her a chance. I kept my eyes on the road. Yeah, I said. She still doesn't know I play baseball, he said. Somebody should tell her. I did not say anything for a moment. Then I said, "You could tell her yourself." He looked out the window. "Maybe I will," he said. "I am not naive enough to think everything will be fine. Healing like this is not a straight line. There will be setbacks. There will be hard conversations. There will be nights when Lily cries for reasons she cannot fully articulate, and mornings when Aiden is quieter than usual, and I know why. But I am still here. That is the only thing I ever promised myself I would be. Still here. My front porch needs repainting. The treehouse in the backyard has a loose board that Bo keeps threatening to fix and keeps not fixing. Lily has a science fair project due in 3 weeks, and Aiden has a travel tournament in Tulsa in April, which means I need to find us somewhere to stay. My sister offered her guest room, but she also has 2 cats, and Lily is mildly allergic. These are the things on my mind on a Tuesday morning in March. Ordinary things. Ours. I raised them, I fed them, I stayed. That is the whole story.